It must be knowledge that frees them, not force. And yes, it's another Assassin's Creed quote. You're welcome. Welcome, Simple Rud, and another episode of the Assassin's Creed build that I'm now calling Animus. Figured it's fitting, shorter name, a lot easier to go with going forward. Now in this episode, I'm going to start going through the sheet metal parts that I had designed and made by Sin Cut Sin. I've been waiting for this package. It's here. I'm excited to see how well I did on reverse engineering. I'm a little nervous because this motherboard tray has a lot of weird angles and a lot of weird things going on. So there's a chance that I failed. But I'm gonna stay positive and, hope that I didn't fail. Yeah. With that, let's open this box. Really need to sharpen this knife. How many ways to fail? Parts. Pretty damn sweet parts. So this is not my first Sin Cut Sin order. In fact, these were. But I got these a while ago. And I got them actually before I decided to, start actually recording this build. I did all of my parts out of 14 gauge steel, except for the back plate, which I went 12 gauge steel. And yes, this is way overkill for what I am doing. However, as you can see, my motherboard tray doesn't have a lot of materials in some areas. Now on top of that, a lot of these parts do have tapped holes, whereas I put PEMs in these guys. And with tapped holes, you really want to use a steel, only because unless you're using nylon screws, steel screws will and can damage aluminum, so aluminum threads can wear out with steel screws. That being said, let's get this out of this packaging. Let me just go over what I got here, and then I can start throwing stuff on the case. Now the feet, I verified they fit, and they actually look really good. I think I did well on matching up the lines, and you could be your own judge when I throw them on. But as you can see, remove the case for you, they are considerably taller. I guess that's the wrong side, put that one there. Now the reason they are taller is because I'm going with a 54 millimeter thick radiator on the bottom with 28 millimeter thick 120 fans. Now with that, there would have been zero airflow even if I could have tucked them underneath it. However, with this, I raised it up a good 1.5 inches over what this is, and I still have roughly 1 inch of airflow coming up from the bottom, which is going to be really nice. So, did I do the wrong side again? Whatever. I'll put them on in a moment. Now, another thing too, right, was I discussed how you couldn't do push and pull on the bottom due to the PSU bracket. So, when I redesigned this tray, I designed it so that I can put an SFX right here on top. Now with that, you see other fun designs. So you got airflow depending on which way I want to put the power supply. So if I want the fan on top, it's fine, but if I want to put it on the bottom, I can do that as well. You've got this whole pattern here for mounting a reservoir underneath. You got this penis here so that I've got a way to mount this guy, and what these will be is pass-throughs for tubing, right? So I'm going to go hard tube in, soft tube out. It's just something I wanted to do design-wise. Now you're wondering what this is, and these were just features I had to add so that Cut Sin could make these bins. Now that being said, now I just got little tabbers I gotta clear off. Now, this guy's a little bit wonky, so even with the steel, it is a mild steel, so steel. This is, you know, a lot more flex than you think. But I would have to go considerably thicker with aluminum to get the same strength. And by then, you know, I might not have had the same benefits weight-wise. These broken off. Now I do have little stabber tabs on there I'm gonna have to remove later. But now you can start to see how it is rather similar in design. Now what I have here, which is hopefully big enough, is going to be for the cable pass-throughs. If not, I will find another place for cables to go. I kind of didn't have a whole lot of room with everything I was doing on here, and I wanted it to look somewhat clean. Now with these, I only actually ordered one, but I got two, so cool. Not sure why. Guess I'll find out if I have any issues. But this is a little bracket so that I can mount my reservoir on top of my radiator up here. So things will get a little creative up there. Worst case, I have the fans on top and the radiator underneath, but we'll get there when we get there. Now the motherboard tray is probably the biggest modification, right? So one, it is very open. And no, I did not hit every single motherboard mounting point because I want to show off the back of the motherboard. Now realistically on the formula, I only missed one spot, so it shouldn't affect anything. Now as you can see, I did move the motherboard a little bit lower, and I also moved it back some, right? So we'll be back further. Now the reason I went back further was one, I've got pass-throughs, so I'm gonna have all 4 tubes from the motherboard and the CPU block come up through here. I've got cutouts for my cables, and then, you know, all of the mounting holes. With that, let's, you know, see how wrong I was and try and get all of this mounted up. Now again, it is all really easy, and they all are, you know, basically just taps and that, so I'm not having to drill anything out, nothing like that. In fact, I wonder if I can just kind of take it out as one and really be lazy on this disassembly. Now the fun thing with this build as well was that it not only uses 632 screws, it also uses M4s. So I ended up changing some of my mounting hardware because of that. And what I mean by that is, instead of having tapped in some places, I actually went through and just did a screw clearance or a through hole. Now the reason I did that, also another benefit, is it gives you a little bit of wiggle room for if my design was wrong. There is a chance my design was wrong. I'm hoping not, because, well, these parts were not cheap. This second order was $184. That being said, most of that cost was the motherboard tray at about $107. Now I measured multiple times, but it doesn't necessarily mean I was correct. The other fun thing about SolidWorks is that SolidWorks can be perfect where real world may not be. This whole case should be falling apart here in a second, but I'll really be able to give you an idea of how much I did change as well. I know, I'm sorry, you can't really see what I'm doing, but it's not that exciting. I'm just taking screws out of this back plate. And of course, I lost the last one, because why wouldn't I? So, as you can see, it is quite the difference. I tried to pinpoint a lot of the similarities, but it doesn't mean I was successful in doing such. But I think my hole pattern is close enough that it may work. Now, if I show you this way, you can kind of see that the holes do not line up anymore. If this gives you a better idea, you're about that far over from where the motherboard was to where it will be. Now, like this, that will also mount to this and line up very similar. Let me just throw that back there. Now I'm also using the standoffs for the motherboard from that on this, so I will have to kind of transfer some parts over. Now, the question is, what is the best way to put this back in there? Almost forgot. I will no longer be needing this in here. I was pretty excited when I figured out that I could actually push-pull on the bottom, because, well, if you're gonna go extreme, you really gotta pull the trigger and go extreme. Now my goal with this was to, in a way, be the most extreme Mod 5 out there, and at the very least, it seems to be the most extreme one on YouTube. So, you know, that'll have to be enough of an accomplishment for now. Now, I could have also, Sin does actually do powder coating. That was an option. I did not take that option because it's an expensive option. And plus, I had kind of mentioned before, I did plan on actually repainting the chassis. So with repainting the chassis, I didn't see a point in powder coating and having to try and match the powder coating. I would rather just go through and paint and match all the paint. Now another thing I did was the McMaster car orders. Now the McMaster car is wonderful for basically any kind of hardware you can think of. Now with that being said, it's not always cheap, because you do kind of have to order in bulk. I did get 2 different lengths on the 632s just because I wasn't positive how much length I really needed. Now I went with a cap nut, which I will show you in a second. It kind of gives it a completed look, right? You're not going to see the inside of the screw. I guess right there, and I'll just zoom in for you guys. Now one fun thing is tolerancing, right? You're going to have a tolerance stack, and where I've got parts, you know, mating with other parts, tolerances become kind of important. Now the nice thing is, well, somewhat nice, is that, you know, Sin is using a water jet or laser cutters, so it's, you know, actually fairly accurate. So anything that is off is actually my fault. Just found an issue. Not sure if this was Sin or myself, but these are not capped. So that is an issue. However, as you can see, does fit in here quite nicely. Let's see if this one fits in here. Okay, so that's going to be an issue. My parts aren't tapped. So this tray will need tapped. Hopefully I have tap and die stuff, but you can already see a massive change in this guy. I'm gonna have to drill those out, drill that out, and then those should work. But with this opening, now you can see what I was doing with this guy, as in showing you on the wrong side, of course, but it'll just cover like this, so I can put RGB lights on there and I can light the back of the motherboard. And with luck, it should shine through onto the front as well. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and install the feet on the bottom. Okay, so put a couple parts on. As you can see, considerably taller now. I think I added an inch to an inch and a half. I don't know. I designed those parts quite a while ago. I do know that going off of my design, if I am correct on how high the radiator is mounted to this plate from the ground, I should still have about an inch of clearance underneath the fans to the tabletop, which should be more than enough airflow. In fact, I probably could have done these feet a half an inch shorter and still been fine. But no such thing as too much airflow. And especially with the goal of hopefully having the fans on a rather low RPM. Now, the other things I added was I did throw on my graphics card bracket, right? So when I was originally doing this design, I wasn't even gonna go a tray. I was gonna do this weird angle on the graphics card that no one really does, just because, I guess. I thought it would have looked cool, but I did want to kind of show off more of the motherboard. It's an expensive motherboard. Why not show it off? However, the more I thought about it, the more I wanted this included, because it does have that third mounting hole for the tempered glass. Now, that may or may not be important, right? So I want the option to put the tempered glass on. I haven't decided if I'm going to or not. Now, I say I want the option to because it will help guide the airflow where I want it, and where I want it is going to be going over the NVMe drives. Now, I want to going over the NVMe drives because I'm probably going to use a Gen 5. I haven't bought it yet, so there's still a chance I might just, go with the Gen 4 due to it being like half the price. But it's also, roughly half the speed, so you got to decide, is it worth spending the extra for the overkill that you may or may not ever utilize? But in time, you probably will utilize it, right? Depending on how long you have your computer, there may be a time to where your stuff's outdated. And of course, at that point, you are more than utilizing it. Back on hand, right? So this guy actually should be, pretty close to correct on where it needs placed. I might need to open up some holes a little bit, but I really don't think so. Should be pretty close to the same angle that I had the other motherboard tray at. Might be a little bit off because I did change things a little bit. Another thing too, you can see I have the right amount of clearance here so that, it kind of looks like it was done on purpose, right? Because that's how it should be. With that being said, this is not tapped. Cannot use it at the moment. I did check on my order. I did specify tapped holes. So I reached out to Send. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Probably not going to hear back from them, this week. Hopefully I do. That'd be cool to see, their response. Of my two orders, they've been really cool to work with. Parts get here fast, especially for them being custom parts. I'm very impressed actually with how quick I get them and the quality they're in. They are a good quality, right? Maybe one of these times I'll shell out the extra to get it powder coated to really put their quality at the test. Now that being said, I did go SFX, right? And I went SFX because I only need 1,000 watt. Now, yes, I'm going 14900K, and eventually I will be going probably 4090, even if I temporarily run my 2080 Ti. Is 1,000 watt enough? I would say so. So, did some Reddit reviews, read through what people were saying, and a lot of them are fine with 1,000 watt with that same setup. Jay's 2 cents just did skunkworks with that setup, and I'm going to trust him because, well, he's got over a decade of experience at this point building with the bleeding edge of tech. So I'm going to trust what he's doing. Now, sadly, this is as far as I can get right now. I also noticed that I myself made a mistake, and somehow I did not do these far enough apart to fit my heat killer reservoir. So I've got to decide how I'm going to remedy that. There's a good chance that I'm just going to come up with something 3D printed because, well, it's already kind of in that mode that 3D printed would work just fine. So there's a good chance I'm going to do that and throw something on the 3D print, especially since I can kind of already use this. I just need to fix my geometry. If not, Send Cut Send is $29. So I ordered me a new bracket and I fix it that way. That one was 100% my fault. Now, this guy I can't really test out at all because, well, I need the pass-throughs to check my hole sizes, which is, of course, I'm going to need the pass-throughs to check that as well. So until then, kind of stuck. So I feel kind of accomplished, kind of defeated all at one go. And if you don't feel that during your build, well, you're probably building correctly. I did not this time. But hopefully it pointed out some things to think about when you're doing this kind of stuff. If anything else, maybe I gave you something to laugh at. I think I'm going to end it there. I think we have everything covered. When I get this tapped and I can get it installed, we'll come back with what would be video number 4 on the Animus build. Yeah, this was video number 3 on this build. So, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, right? Get enough of a following, maybe I will do this full time. Thank you.